This is a TI Raleigh, a very pretty and very limited edition of the bike that Joop Zoetemelk won the 1980 Tour de France on. And this is a 2025 Trek Madone. It is the epitome of a modern race bike. It has carbon fibre tubes, it's got carbon fibre wheels, it's got disc brakes and gears that go beep boop. But how do two bikes that are 45 years apart actually feel to ride? Well, thanks to Favero's new Assioma Pro RS pedals, we're going to find out. Looking at these two bikes, and they couldn't be further apart. Disc brakes have replaced these fan favourite rim squeezing contraptions. The tyres have absolutely ballooned. The gears now require electricity to operate, and modern bikes seem to sometimes have extra holes. Somehow, up until now, I have managed to evade ever riding a bike with downtube shifters. So today we're going to change all of that. To find out the difference between the two bikes, we're going to be subjecting them to a series of tests. First of all, we're going to do a flat test, riding at a set power output. Then we've got a hill climb test, and then finally a sprint test to see how both bikes behave. First of all though, got to get these Favero power pedals on. I think probably the pedal threads are about the only thing, the only standard which hasn't actually changed in the last 45 years. To make matters even easier, all of the technical stuff is inside the pedal axles. So the batteries, the strain gauges, the gyroscopes, is all in this stainless steel axle. And that's really good because it means there's not pods to knock or damage, or I'm quite clumsy, so it's nice that everything's housed inside there. There's also the added benefit, because they're pedal based, you can fit them to one bike on one day of the week. And if you're lucky enough to have a second bike, you can swap them over at the weekend and get your power data on that as well. Also, because I already use Shimano cleats, I won't need to change those over, and these new pedals are 100% Shimano compatible. We've just discovered that we've got a hack for putting on pedals. Cameraman Ed has apparently wasted many hours not doing this. So if you just do the first few threads and then hold the axle and just wind the pedals backwards, it's done up. Then you get your pedal spanner, do the final bit. There you go. Hack. Right, it is time for our first test, and I have a feeling that this one is going to be my favourite because it's flat. Now, the aim of the game here is to ride at a set power output for the lap, and then we'll get back, see which one's fastest, and if there's any meaningful differences between the two bikes. So, as with any real-world testing, you do need to take the results with a little bit of a pinch of salt because it's not a wind tunnel. Still haven't got one of those. But we have done everything in our power to make it a fair test. So we've chosen quite a still day. We've chosen traffic-free roads, so there's nothing to pull us along or hold us up. And we're going to obviously be using the Favero power pedals to measure our power to plus or minus 1% accuracy. Whew. Right, enough procrastinating. Let's get going.
The course for our flat test was a 10-kilometre loop, not pan flat, but about as flat as most real-life rides get. And as you can see from the numbers from the Favero power pedals, I managed to get pretty close to my 250 watt target on both efforts. On the Raleigh, I finished the loop with a time of 17.5 minutes, and on the Trek, I was 26 seconds faster. Now, it should be said that this difference probably wasn't all down to the aerodynamics of the bikes. I definitely felt more confident when cornering on the modern bike, probably in part because that's what I'm used to. If we wanted to ride the Raleigh at the same speed, i.e. about 1 kilometre per hour faster, then it would require about 15 to 20 watts more.
So next up, hill climb test, the all-important weigh-in. So there's 3 things that are going to make the difference when riding up a hill. A, the stiffness of the bike and how that translates the power onto the road. B, the rolling resistance of the tyres. And C, the bike weight. So, I've got to hold the boot up so I now can't see what it weighs.
9.8.
9.8, what did I guess?
9.8.
9.8. Although we do have to take the weight of the pedals off of this one, but they claim to be the lightest power meter pedals in the world, 123.5 grams per pedal, which is pretty impressive. But we are going to validate that. We're going to put them on a set of scales. We're going to use Ed's drug scales to give them away. We'll validate that claim. Right, time to get the Trek on it.
My drug scales?
Right, the Trek, it should be lighter. It's not the lightest Madone build, but this Madone is a lot lighter than the previous generation Madone, which was full-on aero. The wheels aren't the lightest. 105 Di2 also got a bit more weight over Ultegra or Dura. So I'm going to guess, what did I guess for this one? 8.6. Got to hold the boot up, but less.
8.45.
8.45, well done, Trek. You've outdone yourself. So, to find out if this weight saving makes a difference, I'm going to need to go and ride up a hill. Ah, right. Yes, well, it's time for a hill climb test, and Ed's chosen me that. Well, that wasn't very friendly. That tractor can't even get up it. Now I've got to get up on this. Let's go. Oh Christ, that's a long hill. Oh,
how was that?
They were quite fit in the 80s. Oh, you're such an arse. You could have picked so many nicer hills. But we've got time. I don't know if back in the day, did they have different shaped hands? His flat test in the drops are absolutely fine. Up here, there's just, well, these bits get in the way, which is rather annoying. Yeah, so it wasn't the most comfortable experience. Gears, I was actually really impressed with how well they work. They're indexed beautifully. You can feel each gear, and that is absolutely lovely, but I could have done with a few more up there. Yeah, I was out the saddle for most of it. Right, back down. Gotta do it all over again, don't I? Right, let's get these swapped over. So yeah, Trek has most definitely taken on the one race bike to do it all concept. They used to have the Madone, which was their aero bike, and then the Amondo, which was their climbing bike. And this latest one is designed to do both. So it's got much skinnier tubes than the old aero one, much more Amondo-like. But it supposedly is as aero, although that was with a set of aero bottle cages fitted. Let me know what you think of this paint job. I don't know about it. I do rate that Trek has made the logo a lot smaller, but let me know in the comments below. And whilst you're there, make sure you subscribe to the channel.
The hill climb that Ed chose me was near enough 1 kilometre long at an average gradient of 10%, but the times were really rather close. On the Raleigh, I set a time of 3 minutes and 27 seconds, but despite being lighter, I was only 2 seconds faster on the Madone. In fairness though, that was at a lower wattage, and I think the downside of all that gear range is that I probably wasn't forced to push myself as hard. That, and maybe there was some fatigue in the legs by this time in the day. Looking at the data from the Pro RS pedals, and we can see that my average cadence on the retro bike was 8 RPM slower for the effort than on the modern bike. By no means an insignificant difference.
I don't know about easier, definitely different. This bike is a lot smoother, which you wouldn't think you'd feel that much at low speeds. Yeah, you can just apply that power just that little bit smoother. And also, I changed gear a lot more on that one, just because it was easier. And there's also more gears. Not only is this 12 speed, so more quantity of gears, but also more range of those gears. Also, I think because of that smoothness and the gearing, I did a lot more of that sat down. I think that this one probably was quicker, and not because it's slightly lighter. Now, I think this test really does highlight the benefit of using a pedal-based power meter over a crank-based or spider-based version, because we can fit it to basically any bike. It doesn't matter if it's a bike that's getting on a bit, like this one. You can use them on a new bike, and because the pedal bodies are actually removable with an Allen key, you don't even need any proprietary tools, you can swap them out for the Pro MX SPD pedal bodies, and that means that you could use them on your mountain bike or gravel bike. So for our test, we're using the dual-sided version, which cost this much, but there is also a single-sided version, which cost this much. And you can also upgrade from the single-sided to the double-sided version for this much.
I didn't know you were going to do that.
I didn't know I was going to do that. If that sounds tempting, then we'll pop a link in the description below. And the other really good thing about these pedals is it's not going to change how either bike rides. So that's because it's got a really low stack height. That's the distance between the pedal axle and your cleat. That's 10.5 mil, which is really rather low for a power meter pedal. And also the Q factor, that's how far away my feet are from the crank arm. It's the same as on a standard SPD SL pedal, so 53 mil. So it's not gonna affect how either bike rides, because I wanna ride this in all of its glory. And for my final, very scientific test, I'm gonna be sprinting on both bikes. Now this one is less scientific because we're not going to be measuring how much power gets put through the frames or anything. I literally just wanted to see what it was like to sprint on a bike from the 80s. I think this might be where we feel the biggest difference because there's obviously a huge difference in materials. The new bike is composites, everything. It's got carbon fiber handlebars, carbon fiber frame, carbon fiber wheels. This one, I'm pretty sure, well, it was state of the art in the day, but it's got Reynolds 753 tubing, which is obviously steel. And back in the day, it was very special because they managed to make the tubes so thin that they then had to solder it with silver solder so that they could do it at a lower temperature as to not damage the walls. I think the only bit of composite on this bike is the lightweight pedal bodies of the Favero paddles. So yeah, there's quite a difference there. Let's see how it handles. I mean, it's a bucket list item ticked off. It was a bit nerve-wracking because I really didn't want to crash on this lovely bike. I think one thing that's weird is the gears. I think it's just a case of getting used to them, to be honest, because obviously, well, A, you can't change gear whilst on the hoods or drops. There's no sprint shifters either. I have them on my bike. None of that. Yeah, it's just like, am I in that gear? Am I half in between it? And then you sort of get out. And to sprint, it actually felt pretty good. I can only imagine like what it would have felt like in a mass bunch sprint with everyone like playing with their gears and stuff like that. Would have been cool. But yeah, I'll stick to my bike for sprints for now. Right, sprint number 2. This should be a lot more like what I'm used to. Let's go. It's amazing how a bike can be both stiffer and more compliant, isn't it? I've never really got my head around that, but it is a thing. The bottom bracket does feel like it translates that power a bit better, but then you sit back down, you don't feel all those road vibrations through both your bum and through your hands. I must admit, I'm getting on with this cockpit much better. That's the main change that feels different to ride both bikes. Like the spars on the Raleigh are just so skinny, whereas these are really quite chunky. I find the hood's much more comfortable, obviously. That doesn't matter so much while sprinting. It wasn't all in favour of this one though. Like the Raleigh is just so much more involving to ride. It feels like a bit of an event, whether that's a sprint or just riding it. Like if I could choose one bike to go and ride to the cafe on a Sunday, I think it'd have to be the Raleigh. Like, it feels like an adventure going out on a ride. It feels like you have to do something, whereas on this, you just kind of sit there. Does that make sense? So, how much difference have the last 45 years or so made? Well, if you look at the results from the power pedals, then potentially less than you might think. You see, the thing is, even with bikes that are decades apart, they couldn't be more difference in their frame construction and in their componentry and wheels. And yet, the difference is still mainly made by the rider. And that shouldn't really be any big surprise. 80% of your air resistance comes from your body and not from the bike. I've been dropped by many people on much worse bikes than me because they've just got stronger legs or bigger lungs. I don't know what it is, but they're just much stronger. So if you want to get faster on the bike, probably just do some more training rather than buy a new bike. But don't worry, the last 40 years or so haven't been a complete waste of time. The Trek was so much more comfortable, and I think that's true of if we'd chosen any modern race bike. It would be so much more comfortable than this TI Raleigh. No doubt the frame material comes into that, but I think in main, that is down to the tyres. The Trek's got 28mm tyres on it, our TI Raleigh's got 23mm tyres on it, and that was actually fairly large for the time. The other thing is that you can get on the Trek, and thanks to its geometry and the geometry of a lot of modern race bikes, you can just get on it and you can ride to your potential. You can get on it and you can do a sprint. You can get on it and smash it up a hill as hard as you can without having to worry about anything else. They're very pretty, this gear set, but down tube shifters, they look cool and they're definitely of their time, but for actually riding a bike, I don't think anyone will argue that they actually function better. You can argue with me in the comments below, but keeping your hands on the bars with the STI shifters, just so much nicer. And I think that's what it comes down to. The geometry, the frame materials, that is where the evolution has been. Yes, it is probably a bit faster. It was a little bit faster in our testing, but the biggest difference was its comfort and its ease of use. So there you go, there's some progress. Let me know which of these two bikes you would choose to have in your garage down in the comments below. If you want to find out any more details or get yourself a set of those Favero pedals, then we'll pop a link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and we'll see you next time.